Hi and welcome back to Tales Against Humanity, r/I don't work here lady. In today's episode, weird outfit equals employee apparently. XXXL not the owner, not an employee. Went to my old elementary school to reminisce, ended up teaching the Japanese club there instead. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Weird outfit equals employee apparently. I went to the store with my dad, and I was decked out in randomness. I had beads on my shoes to show my pride flag colors, pastel rainbow horns headband, skull and crossbones leggings, Killer Croc t-shirt, and really long vampire hunter-like coat. In other words, I shouldn't have been mistaken for an employee. My dad didn't see any small carts inside, and that's all we needed, so he went to grab one he had seen outside. I waited near the carts, staying out of the way. Someone came in, walked over to me, and asked, "Do you have a bathroom here?" I said, "Oh, yeah they do, it's to the left right as you go in." She said thanks and went away. Later me and Dad bumped into her again, and she asked me if I could help her find the paper plates. I said I was going that way anyway, and took her there. Dad had asked me to grab them while he looked for something specific. I took her there, and grabbed the paper plates I needed. She took them as I turned to go by her, thanking me for them. I looked at her weird before just slowly grabbing another thing of it. "Oh, I only needed one, thank you," she said in response to me grabbing it. I didn't know what to say, so I just quickly slipped by her, and went back to my dad. Later yet again, I was getting some deodorant, and this lady came up to me again. She asked me where a very specific kind of razor was. I just motioned towards the razors. "No, I need help finding very specific razor. I can't find it." I thought I was already taking too much time, but I didn't see any employees from the aisle, so I just stared at her, blanking. When I do that, I don't speak, I barely blink, and sometimes I even hold my breath. This lady waved her hand near my face. "Hello?" "Hi dash," I said, most likely out of habit, then stopped myself, and sighed. That got me out of my blanking, and I just looked toward the razors, then back to the deodorant, grabbing what I wanted to get. I looked around once more to see if I could see any employees. I didn't, so I just shrugged, trying to figure out what to tell the woman, but still coming up with nothing since it's hard for me to form sentences sometimes, and my brain was already fried for the day. "Come help me," she said in a more demanding tone. That just made my legs freeze up, and that's when Dad came to check on me, because I was taking longer than I usually do. He saw the woman and thought I was talking to a lady from church. I turned to him, and he came over with the cart, and I put the deodorant in. "Hi, my dad's name, my name, Dad." "Kinda gotta pull her away, the lady cut him off. "No, you can't, she's busy helping me find a razor." The razors are over there." "Listen, we got a I need help finding very specific razor. And she motioned to me, is going to help me, or I'm gonna get her fired." I mumbled a little, "Good luck with that one, get me whoever is in charge now." I looked at her, then to my dad, who was trying not to laugh at this lady, till I giggled, then he laughed, and my giggles turned into laughing. She was trying to talk to us, but I couldn't hear what she said. We went to the self-checkout, and I waited as Dad scanned everything. The woman came to the checkout, and put her cart by a free machine. She looked around, and the first person she saw was me. She walked over. "At least check out my stuff, it's the least you can, okay, that's enough," I shouted before blushing in embarrassment and looking down, slouching over because my counseling has brought my overreactions down, but also the normal reactions to such things. We're working on it. "Excuse me?" One of the real employees walked over. She knew me 'cause she's friends with my dad. "Her tie-dye stuff is so cool too." "What's wrong, miss? This girl isn't helping me." "That SSS, not her job." "Name, do you even have a job?" I shook my head, quiet. "Yeah right, keep lying. How could you mistake her as an employee? Mistake her as dash, she is an employee. She brought me to the paper plates, she told me where the bathroom is, then this prick 2 dash she had motioned to my dad, and that one insult to him set me off. That's it. Shut your mouth, you stupid jerk. I don't work here, and you have no right to call my dad that. On top of that, you're calling this employee a liar for telling the truth? What the heck is wrong with you? She shut up after I yelled at her like that. I took a few deep breaths and took my headband off, fixed my hair, and put it back on. You're not an employee then? I looked at her like she was stupid. Okay, sorry, I didn't realize. Even when you were told I'm not an employee? She walked back to her cart quietly and began to check her stuff out. The worker made sure I was okay before going to help a customer. Dad got on me about my yelling, then said he probably would have done the same just sooner. Mom got a small laugh out of it due to my outfit and all. In fact, I'm almost laughing at some of this, remembering how stupid it was. XXXL, not the owner, not an employee. So fist time making a post. To kind of give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I worked for the state dealing with public benefits and assistance, SNAP, Medicaid, and the like. I'm 6 foot 2 inches tall. I used to be a powerlifter and weigh 340 pounds, so yeah, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual, unless you are working at the central office or a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time on the day in question in 2018. I was wearing the one and the only suit I own, being the size that the suit is tailored. Now, this was a few years ago, so some things will be paraphrased as my memory is faulty. Few too many blows to the head in my youth. I DM for a D&D game every Thursday at a friend of mine's house. I was in my late 30s. As I was leaving work, my friend GP called me and asked if I could pick him up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So I hit a local game store on my way to his place. While I was there, I noticed a frustrated young woman trying to convey something to the owner. She was using ASL, American Sign Language, the only other language I understand other than English. I tapped her on the shoulder and signed to her to see if I could help her out. She explained that she was looking into getting into D&D with some of her deaf friends from school. So I asked her some questions and found that they have never played, but due to the success of Critical Role they want to try, and she is going to DM. I help her get everything she will need for new players, and she was just so happy that someone could help her out using ASL, and that she thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I explained to her that she had been working with the owner when I got there, and that I was just an avid D&D fan and DM myself, and that I was just stopping in for some dice. She looked at me confused and singed. So you don't work here? Nope, just wanted help since I know sign language. We laughed. So back to getting dice. That's when Karen strikes. She starts yelling at the owner of the store, wanting to know why the owner was spending all his time helping the cute young woman, but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who just wanted to get her grandchild a video game. This game store does not sell video games. Now let's paint a picture. Karen here is about 5 feet tall, standard Karen haircut, and maybe 240 in weight, and in her early 40s. If she has a grandchild that can play video games, some poor choices may have been made in her past. The actual owner of the store said, I help people that come to the counter, and if they need help with something out on the store floor, I help them as best that I can. Then Karen points at me and says, no, I'm talking about the owner. The actual owner of the store. And I look at each other, and at the same time say, lady, he does not work here, and he is the owner, and this place does not sell video games. We smile at each other. This is where Karen explodes on why does a game store not sell video games, and what is she going to do now? She waddles over to me and starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of I should be nicer to older customers, and they are the ones keeping my store open. At this point, I pull out my state employee badge and point at it and say, real slow, lady. I don't work here. And you can go next door to insert name of big box store rhymes with Dred Myers. I then explained that by state and federal law, by poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, she sputtered, then slapped me. When I started to talk again, she slapped me again. At this point, I got ticked off. Stood to my full height and yelled at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time that I would defend myself, and she would not like the results. At this point, the owner has called the police and has the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states that the officer is 2 minutes out. She screams and then tries to slap me again. I catch her by the wrist, spin her around and pin her hand to her back. I grab her other hand and holding both her hands behind her back and at arm's length, so that she couldn't kick me in the shins. This is when the police show up. Now when you have a guy standing a foot plus taller holding a screaming woman at bay, cops are automatically going to think that you are in the wrong. Officer 1, lady officer 2, guy. Officer 1 comes in first and sees this, says, "Sir, please let go of the woman." I said I will as long as she won't hit me again. Karen starts going off on how I hit her, and that she was just defending herself, and that I need to be arrested. Officer 2, hearing this, pulls his taser, and says, "Man, you need to let her go now." I let her go and raise my hands to head level. Karen spins round, kicks me, and then slaps me again. The owner of the shop says that's the third and fourth time she has assaulted that customer. Officer 1 then places Karen in cuffs and escorts her out to the car. Officer 2 is a short guy about 5'8" tall or so. Still pointing the taser at me and wants to cuff me. I explained that was no going to happen as my wrists are too big for his cuffs, and that he would need zip cuffs, and that he needed to call a sergeant if he was actually going to try and arrest me. Officer 2 steps back and says, "Are you resisting arrest?" I said no, but I will be exercising my rights to a lawful investigation prior to arrest, proven innocent till guilty, and that jazz, as I was then one defending myself from being assaulted by that screaming harridan your partner just took outside. Now if you want me cuffed while you determine what's going on so you feel safe, I fully agree too, that I'm just explaining that my wrist won't fit your metal cuffs. Officer 1 comes back in and says that Karen has been detained and is demanding a supervisor. The store owner pipes in with his side of the story, Officer 2 still pointing a taser at me, and explains that Karen assaulted me twice, and was in the process of assaulting me a third time before I had restrained her. At this point Officer 2 puts his taser away, and then jokingly asks if he can see if the cuffs really won't fit. I hold out my right hand, and he pulls out his cuffs, and is like, "Damn, they won't fit." For everyone's information, minimum inside perimeter of the bracelet is 7.9 in, 20 centimeters, when the ratchet is engaged at the first notch. The maximum perimeter is 6.5 in, 16 centimeters, when the ratchet is engaged at the last notch. My wrist is 10 inches around. Officer 1 and 2 were both amazed that the cuffs would not actually fit me. And that even if they did, due to my size, they would not be able to cuff me behind the back. At this time the sergeant shows up. He walks and sees me, and says, "Hey Rusty, long time no see. Hey Sarge, how's things?" Long story shorter, Karen was arrested for assault, and hell yes, I pressed charges. From what I was told by Sarge, this was her 12th incident for similar issues, but the first time she got violent with someone. Went to my old elementary school to reminisce, ended up teaching the Japanese club there instead. Sorry for any grammar mistakes as I'm not a native speaker, hope you'll at least understand the story a bit. Kind of wholesome too. This happened when I was in my first year of high school, around late 2019 or so. Class ended early and I was bored with nothing to do, so I went to my previous elementary school since it only took me 5 minutes by walking to go there. I also missed the days I spent there, being nostalgic and all, so I thought it'd be fun. It was Saturday afternoon around 1 p.m., so most kids had already gone home, leaving only the kids with extracurricular activities at the school. Some of the teachers recognized me, so I talked to them about how I've been and all, and asked one of them if I could go inside my old classroom since it seemed to be empty. The teacher allowed kind of joked too by saying, "What, you want to be an elementary schooler again?" But reminded me that I needed to get out in 13:30 since an extracurricular activity is going to take place there. It was 13:20 when I asked, so I said okay, and went inside the class. I spent the little time I had looking around, enamored at how, despite the school being renovated in 2018, some of the stuff my old class had made or left is still in the classroom. I was reminiscing too much that I forgot about the time limit, and by the time I was looking at a Japanese calendar I made back then, it was just a normal calendar, but with Japanese celebration days below the dates and all, there were already 3 kids inside the class. One of them asked, "Are you a substitute teacher?" while the other 2 looked pretty scared. I turned around and walked to them with the calendar still in my hand, but before I even said anything, another kid said "Koinobori," while pointing at the background I used for the calendar. For context, koinobori are carp-shaped windsocks that are used to celebrate Children's Day in Japan, which happens on May 5th every year. Another kid quickly realized and said, "So you are a teacher?" I was still confused, but since they pointed out the koinobori background, I said, "Oh, you're right. I'm surprised you know what koinobori is," which one of them replied, "Of course. The actual teacher's name taught us 2 weeks ago." And that's where it clicked for me. They were members of the Japanese club, and they thought I was another teacher since I was holding the Japanese calendar I made back when I was still a student there. I remember the Japanese club being made when I was about to graduate, so I didn't have a chance to join and didn't know much, but I know that my Japanese teacher back then was also the teacher for this club. We got along well, since I was a weeb. Yes, I was that annoying weeb who would end their sentence with desu, or say stuff with broken Japanese to my friends. No, I'm a better weeb now, and would always ask her about the language. I figured, since I still am learning Japanese regularly, and I got along well with the teacher, where's the harm of entertaining these students? Honestly, even without me saying anything, the students were already telling me their names and told me about what the actual teacher taught the previous week. I learned that all 3 of them like anime as well, one even as much of a weeb as I was. Unfortunately, the teacher taught hiragana the previous week, one of the 3 Japanese writing systems, so I decided to turn my laptop on and played a Detective Conan opening without sound. See here, that Detective Conan opening video had the lyrics written in hiragana, with any kanji having hiragana letters on top of it too, at the bottom, so I told them to translate the hiragana to Romaji, Roman letters. They said okay, and they got to work. It went kind of well, frankly speaking. Since there were only 3 students, it wasn't difficult to control them. I would sit beside them, and they'll ask about a hiragana they didn't remember or didn't know of. The actual teacher only taught them up to yayuyo, which means they haven't known the hiragana to ra ri ru ri ro wawa n for about 15 minutes, until the teacher finally came inside the class. The actual teacher was confused. I don't think she even recognized me at the time she walked in, so she just asked, "Wait, what?" One of the kids quickly chimed in and said, "Teacher, we've been studying with you / decent bites." She looked at me for a moment, until a smile formed on her face. Finally recognizing me, we talked about the usual teacher-graduated student conversation topics until I explained what happened, which made her laugh for a bit. She then explained the situation to the students, which made them apologize to me for quickly assuming things and stuff. I told them it was fine. They smiled and went back to translate the Conan opening. I stayed up for the rest of the extracurricular activity, mostly talking to the students about the newest My Hero Academia episode until all 3 of them finished translating the opening. The students were sad to know that I won't be coming again. This honestly made me really happy, but the teacher calmed them down by saying, "I'm sure you / decent bites will come again, he never has anything to do after all," which made them laugh. And yeah, that was the end. I don't have the teacher's contact, so I planned to visit them unannounced in early 2020, but the pandemic happened, and I don't know if I will ever have the chance to visit them again before I graduate from high school. I'm on 2nd year now, the cringy weeb. I'm sorry, but it has to be said, student actually gave me his line ID, but I guess he deleted his account or something since I don't see him on my contact list anymore. He used to message me about the anime he just watched or something about the language he didn't understand, which never fails to make me smile, but yeah, I'm unable to contact them nowadays, which is kind of sad. I hope you enjoyed this story. Sorry if it wasn't as anger-inducing as the other stories posted here, but I thought it'd be nice to lighten up the mood a bit. Thanks for reading.